How you doing, Shay?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
What are we going to see?
Well, we're going to talk about a few of the things that I think are very important in sport fishing or in the act of angling. Everybody wants to be one of those people that catches more fish than the average guy or catches more than his share, likes to get bit a lot. And there's certain things that we can do that are very important to making that happen. And a lot of it actually involves a little bit of practice at home, rather than the angler just picking up his rods the night he's leaving and putting them in the car and coming down to the boat. As I've said many times before, if you had a young man playing baseball before baseball season, you'd be telling him he better get his arm in shape. And if he was playing basketball, you're going to be telling him he better start getting his eye and get his shot down, etc. But we don't do anything about our fishing, okay? I think that there's a couple things that are overrated. One is bait selectivity. Everybody puts such importance on it. Is it important? Of course it's important. But when you're on a long-range boat, and I said long range, 90% of the time, every bait that's put in the basket is a good bait. And it's a question of picking a bait that is swimming well and not standing at the tank for 2 or 3 minutes trying to pick a bait. The other thing that I think is way overrated is the old term, change your bait, gang. Change your bait every couple of minutes. That's another thing that's, in my opinion, a strong falsehood, especially in plunk type fishing, which we often have for bluefin tuna or big yellowfin tuna. So I think approaching the bait tank properly, getting your bait hooked, and we're gonna do that, and then making a cast. I think the cast is a very important thing because it gives you the edge of getting out away from the boat. And then the most important thing after that is getting your bait into the zone. As you know, when you're in today's in today's fishing world, when we throw a bait, a lot of times the top shot is 20 feet. Well, if you look here, standing on the bow, 20 feet is not very far. So if we learn to hold our rods up a little bit and only have maybe 2-3 feet of line in the water, rather than leaving our tips down and making the anchovy or the sardine drag all the line, that bait's going to swim that much faster and that much better. Okay, and we'll show you what we mean by that. The other big question is the sardine and the anchovy. Everybody's a little concerned. And do I think the cycle is happening? Yeah, I've said that for a couple of years. I think it is happening. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised for all of those that have gotten spoiled, including myself, that the sardine comes back in a hurry. But I remember the last time I saw it happen, it was 15 years. And I think it's back to the anchovy time and back to the long-range boats making sardines and mackerel before they really get into their long-range fishing. We're going to see a lot more of that. Whereas we've been spoiled and passengers have been able to sleep all night long and get up in their full tanks of sardines. So now it's going to take a little bit more work and a little bit more effort. So we're going to talk about 2 types of casting and then getting the bait into the zone and hooking the bait. First, we're going to play with an anchovy and how you should hook it and how you should cast it, because you cast an anchovy different than you would a sardine. Okay, and then we're going to talk about picking up a big outfit and casting a sardine, a mackerel, anything like that, because we're going to still have big baits when we're fishing down at the islands. So if I'm going to be fishing bluefin tuna and I'm going to be fishing anchovies, I'm going to start to think back like I did years ago, that I want a little bit longer rod. An 8-foot rod, even a 8.5-foot rod is going to help you with fishing anchovy, because you want to get it out away from the boat. I remember a time when Tim Ekstrom was working on here, and him and I were hooking fish for people, and people were trying to hook their fish. We had straight anchovies, obviously many years ago. And he and I were going 1 for 1 on each other, trying to beat each other. But it was all about getting that anchovy away from the boat. I talk about even getting the sardine away from the boat. So many times when you watch yellowfin tuna or bluefin tuna going through the corner, in a hot bite, when they're really coming through and you really don't need to cast, that's fine. But where are the bigger fish? The bigger fish are usually on the outside. The ones that you see boil out a little further away from the boat. The ones that don't want to come right to the corner of the boat. Those are usually your smaller school type fish. And I'm talking about if you're fishing 25 and 30 pound fish, the 40 pounder is going to be on the outside edge of that. So that's why I say the cast is important. So as I have probably shown many times, you'll see most crew members that fish quite a bit will always have quite a bit of line out, okay? That much. They hold their hook right in their hand. They lay the rod in the crook of their arm, just like so, okay? They walk to the bait tank. They put their hand in the hand well. Now that's not a great anchovy, but we don't have a lot. And notice how I've got my little finger controlling the tail. I've got his head between the index finger and the next. Perfectly prepared to gill hook this bait. And to me, when we're fishing anchovies, it's the only way I want to hook a bait. I don't like to nose hook an anchovy at all.
You prefer the gill?
Always the gill hook. And some people like to go like that. I like to go straight on down. My preference of hooking is just like so. Okay? The hook coming out just like that. Okay. Now I take my anchovy, I'm walking to the rail. If I want to, I can dip him down in the water, let him get going again. Bring my anchovy up. And notice my cast is going to be a little different here. Okay, my cast this time, I got arc, but I used a little more roundhouse, okay? And that's because it's an anchovy, all right? Now, one thing I forgot to do with this outfit was what I always tell people to do, was I forgot to wet my line. So therefore, I've got a little bit of loose line here. Whereas the most important thing you do on that first cast in the morning, or whenever it is you stop fishing, is to go to the bait tank and splash some line on that reel. Yeah, excuse me, splash some water on that reel. There is no one that I know of that can cast dry line without getting a backlash. So, notice one more time, the cast has more arc, okay? Swing the bait a little bit, and then that will improve your cast immensely with an anchovy. One of the other things that an angler wants to remember when he's reeling in his bait to change a bait is always have that line between his index finger and his thumb with pressure on it so he winds it in tightly. Otherwise, if he doesn't do that, the next cast will have a backlash on it. And because we don't have level wind reels, because we don't like them for this kind of fishing, you have to remember to go back and forth. You can't wind it all in the same place, okay?